Hey everyone, this is NICMOR from NICMOR. If you want to visit us on SoundCloud, it's soundcloud.com/NICMOR. Anyway, I'm going to be giving a tutorial on how to make some of the growls and the synths from Skrillex's song First of the Year, or Equinox, whichever you want to call it. I can't play the original track in this because there's ads in this video and I don't have the rights to play his song and make money off of it. However, if you visit the link below, you can listen to the recreation I made or listen to the original song. Anyway, I'm going to show you, first of all the noises I recreated, and then we'll go through each one and review how I made them. Okay guys, we're going to get to growl 1 now. First thing you want to do is create or start a new channel for the effects in the mixer. I'm on 47 because my projects have a lot of effects channels. But probably in your case you're just going to use one of the bottom ones. Just make sure you don't obviously use it on the master channel because that doesn't make any sense. That would apply to everything. But any other channel will do, in my case 47. What you need to put on it is only 3 things. You need the equalizer, of course, but in this case I wouldn't really worry about it too much. I didn't really change a whole lot. I only made it just sound a little bit brighter. But it's really up to your project and how you EQ'd everything else, of course. Second thing, this is the most important, is the wow filter. If you don't have it, it's by a company called Sugar Bytes, and it's actually pretty cheap. I think it was $50 or $100. I can't remember exactly, but it's really cheap and it's extremely useful. Anyway, once you get that, or if you already have it, the next thing you want to do is change the preset from whatever it is on default to Val Vocal Comb, option number 13. Once you get to that, it should already have the EQ set to band reject. If not, just drag it down to band reject. Change the first vowel, vowel A, to the U with the 2 dots over it. The second vowel, vowel B, needs to be A. And then make sure the knob is all the way to the bottom left. It should be already automating like it is here, back and forth. But if not, just look at these settings here and make sure they match the same. They should be the same, but I'm pretty sure these were the defaults, and I haven't changed these. Now, sometimes I do automate this, using editing the events in FL, but in this case, I didn't need to. It actually already does what I wanted to. But make sure the overdrive is right under 30, and the resonance is about 80 or 90. Make sure it's not at 100 because it starts to distort and sound really bad, but there's a sweet spot right below that where you can get the vowels to come through, but it doesn't sound horrible. So once you get that, also make sure the mix is at 50, not 100. Just want it to come through a little bit more than what it already does. Once you do that, the last thing you need to apply is the Fruity Flangus. This just comes with FL Studio. And here are the settings if you don't already have the same ones, but I'm pretty sure this is what they were already at when I loaded it, and I already liked it. The only thing I changed, though, is the Flangus is at a little over 50% volume instead of 100%. I didn't want it fully in there because if you spread it between the 2 speakers too much, it loses its quality, it seems like. But halfway there is about right. So after you got the effects in there, you want to start a new patch in Massive, of course. Just start with, nothing done to it. And on oscillator 1, you're going to want to change it from the square saw to the additive mix number 2. I'm going to start playing this so I can hear the sound. You might not be able to hear it because it's on my speakers, but I need to hear it so I can hear what I'm doing to it, obviously. So after you do that, change it from Spectrum to Bin Plus. And almost immediately you'll start hearing more of a growl sound from it. Then after that, drag the position to a little bit past halfway. About there is good. And take LFO number 5, the little pointer arrows, and drag it to the first box here. If you've never done this before, this is basically letting you automate this knob. You can do it to just about anything in Massive, and it's extremely useful if you've never done it before. But we'll worry about the automations down there a little bit later. For now, just drag it and put it here. Click the 5 and drag down, and as you can see, it changes the surface area of what will be changed from this LFO down here. So this one is correct, just make sure it matches the same, obviously. Next, you want to enable the second oscillator and set it to Arctic. Just down here under digital hybrid. And this needs to be a bend minus, or bend negative, what do you want to call it. This one, set the position to a little bit past the left side. And do the same thing with the LFO. Drag it to the first box. Drag it down to the bottom. And you'll, if you're listening to it, you'll kind of hear it sound a little bit more brighter, but still has the growl to it. And on the last one, enable the third oscillator. You want to go to the Scrapyard synth, or oscillator, sorry. This is the one that really does all the magic. Scrapyard is really, really useful. And of course, do the same thing with the LFO. Drag it to the first box. And drag this one about halfway down, not all the way down. Make sure the intensity is all the way up on all of these. Okay, now for filter 1, select Scream. Whoops. And of course, we're going to use this same LFO again. Drag this all the way over. And we're going to basically be automating the wobble on it. That's what this is for. And make sure the Scream's a little bit to the left. And resonance is almost all the way down, but not completely. Okay. And before I go to this LFO, I still want to cover a couple of more things. On the noise down here, make sure it's enabled, and go to metal. Or metallic, sorry. Drag the color down a little bit, not all the way up, and the amplifier is a little bit high. It's a very subtle effect, but it's still a little nice little touch. And now on insert 1, go to the sine shaper, and the dry wet should be a little bit less than half, and the drive should be in the middle, but you want to put the LFO on it, and drag the LFO from the middle down to the left all the way. Okay, that'll cover everything outside of the LFO. We'll go to the the effects and the EQing after this. Okay, on LFO on number 5, make sure the rate starts off almost to the right all the way, but a little bit above. And then take LFO number 8 and drag it to the rate box below it, and make it cover the whole top area. And make sure the LFO wave itself is in the middle here. And of course, make sure all the other settings match too, but they should. All of these are defaults, I believe. Okay, that's almost all of it. Now you want to go to LFO 8 and change it from an LFO to a stepper. Change the rate to sync. See this little box? Check that off, and this will change it to a totally different way of setting the ratio. Make it 1 and 12. Now on this part, kind of see what I do and try to copy it. Maybe you'll have to pause the video, but this was my half-assed attempt at trying to copy the same way the sound flows in his song. Let me see if this sounds right. Seems about right. Something sounds a little bit wrong though for me. Let me see if this will cover it. Obviously turn it up louder. This will make the wow filter have a much more profound effect on it. Just obviously don't hit the red though. You want it to peak almost to the top, but you don't want it to actually hit yellow or red. Not that there's yellow in Massive, but you know what I mean. Now for the first effect, we're going to use chorus, but turn down the depth almost all the way and the offset almost all the way. And the rate should be a little bit less than half. Dry wet, a little bit less than half as well. And then I don't use the second effects, but I do use the EQ. So enable the EQ, turn the high almost all the way up. Don't mess with any of these. You might want to turn down the low a little bit, just really depends. But there we go. If you did everything the same way I did, you should be getting a sound very similar to what I did in the beginning. That's it for the first one. Okay, now we're going to cover growl number 2. This is the one that comes in right at the drop in Equinox. It's heavily based off the first growl we just made. There's just a couple slight changes to the effects and the synth itself. So first off, what you want to do is clone the massive synth that we just created. I've already done that in this case, but if you don't know how to, just right click on the one you made and just click clone. It's going to automatically create a new exact same instance of that massive. But once you do that, click it and make sure to set the effect channel to a different channel. In this case for me it's 41, but if you just drag it to whatever you need it to be, but make sure it's not the same channel because there are differences in effects. So once you've done that in your effects, it's the same effects but done differently. I still have the EQ, but I did change the EQ a little bit. The highs are coming through a little bit more. Normally with EQing you're supposed to, instead of adding things, you're supposed to take away things, but I'm a lazy producer and this is a recreation, so I just don't care. But EQing I wouldn't even worry about. It's really up to your song and how everything else is EQ'd and set, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Second one is the wow filter. The difference is with this, make sure it's at about 75% volume instead of 100%. And then I changed the val. Val B is now a U without the 2 dots instead of, I think it was A in the last one. I also changed the cutoff knob to be about 80 instead of 100. That way it kind of hits between the U and the U with the 2 dots above it. Resonance is still at about 90. Overdrive is right under 30. The mix is at 50. The master's at 100. These things are still defaults. You shouldn't have to change any of that. And then I still have the flangus on it, about 50%. Should be the same settings as before. As for the synth itself, we're going to change a couple things with it. The first oscillator stays the same. The second one, you're going to want to change the knob from where it was before to a little bit past halfway. And of course drag the LFO down a little bit so it makes up the room we just lost. And then on the scrapyard, that one changes too. You're going to want to change the knob to start where the green starts, about right there, and then reverse that. So you basically just traded spots with the way it functions. I don't believe any of these change. That should keep the same. This is still metal. Sign shaper is still the same. The effects are still the same as well too. And the scream stays exactly the same. On the LFO, that does stay the same. However, the stepper, you don't really need the rest of the stuff in the stepper past the 4 because we only ever, or at least in this recreation, you only ever use the first 4 bars. But, I mean, if you've already done it for the first one, I would just leave it alone for right now. But it just depends on how you use it in your song, honestly. But anyway, number 8 should look like this. It should be basically the exact same as before. If it isn't, then you need to go back and make sure it looks the same. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm listening to it now. Yep, sounds pretty good. Okay, now we're going to cover the rise. I just call it that because it's what comes right after the first growl, and it rises up from low to high. This one is really, really easy to do. I was just messing around in Massive one day and just stumbled upon the sound that Skrillex has used, or at least if it's not the same, it's very similar. I mean, I don't know if he made it in Massive, but you can't really tell when it's something so simple like this because a lot of synthesizers, have very basic things like this in them. But basically all you do is set the first oscillator to sync. And if you're wondering before I go through all this, there really isn't any kind of effects that I have applied to this. I mean, you might want to do some EQing and, I don't know. I mean, there's a chorus, but that's in massive. I haven't applied any effects outside of massive into this. But anyway, the first one you want to set is sync. Oh, there it is. It starts with hard sync, but I don't know. It's under analog electric hard sync. Set the position to a little bit less than full. I'd say like 75% or so. You will hear it. I mean, you can adjust it based on what you hear, of course. I don't even use the second two oscillators. You could use the same thing. You could set sync on all three or just two and make it a little more full, but my problem with doing stuff like that is if it's not exactly the same, then it has a little bit of a weird effect on it. Anyway, I don't have anything in the modulation. I don't have anything with the noise, so turn that off. And then the LFOs don't even matter because this is just one single sound. The only thing that really does matter is I do have chorus, and it's a little bit less than halfway. The rate's about 25%. The offset's almost nothing, a little bit above nothing. The depth's a little bit less than halfway. And I do have EQ on it with the highs all the way up, probably the lows down a little bit. Definitely want to turn it up so that it shines through. And then, right now it sounds awful because it's not sliding, but to fix that you go to voicing, and then instead of polyphonic, you set it to monophonic. And basically, this allows it to slide notes instead of just playing two notes at the same time, if you start one a little bit before the other one. And then go to the oscillator tab, and the time right here, that adjusts how fast or slow it slides up or down between notes. And if it sounds a little bit off, it's because of the sync. You just need to adjust it. And that's basically it. Okay, now we're going to focus on the pluck. The good thing about this one is, for one, you are basing this off of the last growl we made, growl number 2. And it uses the exact same effects channel as growl number 2. So you'd want to clone the previous one you did, which in my case is 43, and start with the same settings as the last one. And it should already be in the same channel since you cloned the same massive. Same channel, once again, EQing, wow, flanger, those have not changed, so I will not cover them. But the sound does change a little bit. If you listen to it right away, it just sounds kind of weird right now if you try to pluck it, with short notes, but obviously I adjust it to fix that. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is oscillator 1. Still the same. All those oscillators are still the same, but you want to drag the green all the way over. So drag this all the way to the top, and then make sure the green covers the entire area. Second one, the Arctic, it's the same, or Arctic, sorry. It's the same thing. Drag it all the way over and make sure it covers the whole area. The third one, Scrapyard, you want to move it a little bit up, and then you want to have the green, the LFO for number 5, cover a little bit more area. Not all the way to the bottom, but kind of close. On the modulation oscillator, for the ring mod, it's on number 2 now. And you only want to cover this tiny little area. So do it like I'm doing here. It's kind of hard to describe because it's a very specific area, but the green starts a little bit past halfway and ends before it even reaches 75%. Again, like I said, it's kind of hard to describe. Phaser stays the same on number 3. And you don't need the metal, so turn that off. You don't need the sine shaper, so turn that off. Scream stays the same, but the LFO does change. Now in this case, keep the knob of the rate the same, but change the number 8 LFO automation to be just a tiny little area. and then change this to the last curve selection and move it to the middle, so it's a lot more plucky and kind of snaps through instead of being a curve. And then the last thing you need to do is go to the stepper. The only difference is, and this just depends on, again, how long you drag the note out for, is these last ones. But it's not going to matter if you don't drag the note out that long, which I don't in this song. There we go. Turn up a little bit. And that should be it. If it doesn't sound exactly the same or right for you, again, this is very important. The LFO right here for number 5 is very important because that controls everything just about in the synth that's making the sound. So if it doesn't sound right, adjust the rate a little bit, adjust the automation for the number 8 stepper on it, because that's what, definitely chooses the noise and goes between the sounds of each oscillator. But that's it. Okay, and for this last one I'm going to cover, I call it the scream, but it doesn't really sound like a scream, but I don't really know what else to call it, but it's that repetitive noise, and somebody in the video that I made, the recreation, somebody specifically requested that I show them how to do this, and it's extremely easy, so I went ahead and just decided to show you here. Again, this one does not use any effects outside of Massive. You can do everything you need inside of it. That's not to say you shouldn't apply effects out of it, but I just didn't have a need for it in this case. But I went ahead and just loaded what I already made in it because it's so simple. I didn't really see a point in trying to go back through and change a couple more knobs and then be done already. So in this case, here's what you do. First oscillator is the sync again, just like the last noise we made, except that the position now is just about all the way to the right, but in the middle, if that makes any sense. Second oscillator is the AI. Oh, and if you want to see where these are, syncs under analog electric, it's the hard sync. Second one's AI under a digital hybrid. It's a little bit past the middle and the bottom. And that position is almost all the way to the right, but a little bit up. And the third one is the square saw 1 under basic. That one is almost all the way to the right, but in the middle. I don't use any of the effects around here. I'm not changing any of the inserts. I'm not using any LFOs. I'm not using the scream. However, I am using the Bronner tube, the last option here. And the dry wet, it's a little bit more than halfway turned up. The drive is almost all the way turned up, but in the middle. Don't use the last 2 knobs. And then I have the chorus enabled on it. All the knobs are a little bit past half on the left side. And then EQ, of course, the high's up a little bit, but nothing else has changed. And if you did everything right, it should sound just like this, which is pretty similar to what Skrillex sounds like in that part. I mean, it's not quite as high quality, and I just simply don't have the time to spend trying to do that. But if you do feel like trying to figure out, getting further, then this is a great starting point. But that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helped. Please subscribe for more tutorials later on down the road. And NICMOR are working on an EP that will be out pretty soon. So if you want to know when that's out, subscribing will help you as well. Thanks.